can't see, he's got a legal pad in his hand. I just thought I'd warn you.
Is it a
You can't give me extra time, I'll get in trouble.
All right. Today, I would like to share some information on a topic some of you know a little about and some of you know next to nothing about, the internet. As most of you know, the internet is a heavily used tool in the modern world. But where did the internet come from, and just how far has it progressed over the years? First off, let's recall the first computers. Not the personal computers we've come to know and love, but computers that made the idea of personal computers laughable. That's right, I'm talking about the computers that took up entire rooms, the computers that were all dials and switches, computers that had to be kept in cooling rooms despite only being able to run one task at a time. Because of the computers being stored in the cooled rooms, the developers weren't able to work hands-on with the computers. Specialists were brought in to take what the developers had written and enter it into the computer. This gave the developers a sort of disconnect, pardon the pun, which led to bugs and glitches in the software. They couldn't have that as it stood in the way of technological progress. In 1957, a remote connection was established so that developers could access and work on the computer while outside of the room the computer was physically located in. The connection was still wired, but at the time, this was still revolutionary. Perhaps the most important event in the creation of the internet was the launching of Sputnik 1 into space by the Soviets. Due to the fear created by the Soviets' advanced military capabilities, the United States government founded the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, better known as DARPA. DARPA wanted to create a medium where information flow and re-access to that information was more immediate. They managed to create such a network and aptly named it ARPANET. 3 other concepts were developed alongside ARPANET, although they weren't all developed in the US. There was a military network developed by the RAND Corporation, who did happen to be located in the US. The commercial network, or business network, was developed by the National Physical Laboratory in England. Last, but certainly not least, Cyclades, the scientific network, was developed in France. These 3 networks combined are the foundation of internet as we know it today. As with many initial concepts, ARPANET was very flawed at the time. With the Cold War looming in the background, ARPANET's infrastructure was extremely exposed. You see, ARPANET was running on a centralized system. Let me put it in this way. Imagine one grand power plant that supplies all the smaller plants with energy. In the case of nuclear war, if the primary plant was destroyed, none of the smaller plants could function. Such was the case with ARPANET's infrastructure. With the newfound speed of information transfer through ARPANET, they couldn't afford such a glaringly obvious Achilles heel during the Cold War era. Thus, they built a decentralized system where separate nodes would interact with each other. This way, if one node went down or was destroyed in a nuclear attack, the remaining nodes would interact with the next node closest to them, allowing the information to still be transferred despite the crisis. Imagine a group of 4 dots, all connected as a square. If one of those dots was to be taken out, it would just connect the remaining 3 into a triangle. That's how that system worked. Phone companies soon caught on to how the system worked and decided to monetize the idea. For a fee, the common man could now access the internet, so long as they had the patience for dial-up. Progress for the internet really took off once the public got their hands on it. Companies began to have to compete with each other in terms of access price, connection speed, and connection strength. With the public's desire for a bigger and better internet, portability was beginning to be desired. Laptops could be carried everywhere, why not the internet? Thus, Wi-Fi was introduced. Without the need for a wired connection, you no longer were tethered to one area. This was a marvelous innovation that multiplied the possibilities exponentially. So, with everything so accessible, what kind of changes did the internet see? First of all, the amount of users now compared to the earlier days of the internet is crazy. In 1994, only 3% of Americans had access to the internet. In 2002, that number jumped to 92%. And as of August of last year, 98% of Americans are able to gain access to the internet. Keep in mind that these figures are representative of those who could access the internet. 20% of Americans refuse to have internet for various reasons, such as price. Even so, those numbers are amazing. In less than a decade, we went from barely anyone having the possibility to access the internet to almost everyone. The internet has grown to be a part of our societal norm, a part of almost our everyday lives. But how has it reached this point? What progress in applications has led the internet to feel so important to so many? When the internet was first created, emails were its primary use, as information transfer was the internet's initial primary goal. As computers progressed, so did the internet. With visual interfaces introduced, much more was possible compared to text-based computers. Now new ideas were introduced compared to text-based computers, like blogging, participating in forums, or reading the news online. But these ideas were still fairly text-based. They only used navigating around the site to take advantage of the visual interface. Real change came when videos, music, and games became accessible over the internet. This spawned social media pages in many forms like Facebook and MySpace. When other means of communicating to others on the internet became available, like YouTube or Imgur, the internet transformed into what it is today. Something wonderful, but incredibly weird. I know many of you have probably shared photos on Facebook. Well, there's sites dedicated only to that. People spend hours looking at sites with funny pictures on them, with jokes ranging from "Why did the chicken cross the road?" to the anti-joke chicken, where people laugh at something because it's made to look unfunny. If you think that's weird, the internet is also home to dating sites that want to take your money so you can pay to talk to local strangers. But the internet is so much more than even those things now. We can connect with friends through Skype, play online games with them. All this spawned originally from the fear of nuclear warfare, and all progressed from originally only being able to send emails. See how far we've come? I know I have.